Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. Daniel Dubois absolutely destroys Anthony Joshua in 5 one-sided rounds to retain his IBF World Heavyweight title. Let's talk about it. Before the fight, Eddie Hearn kept banging on about how Dubois was going to freeze on the big stage, but it was the more experienced Joshua who looked overwhelmed on his way to the ring. In stark contrast, Dubois was pacing around like a caged lion during the pre-fight introductions. At the opening bell, Dubois came out aggressively with a spring in his step and immediately found success with his jab, forcing a nervous-looking Joshua onto the retreat. AJ tried to win center ring and establish his own jab, but Dubois' left hand was quicker off the mark. Joshua attempted to catch the on-rushing Dubois with a right hand on the way in, but he couldn't get his timing right. He was clearly uncomfortable with the pace that Dubois was setting. Towards the end of the round, Joshua loaded up on a right hand and missed badly, falling off balance. He then pulled straight back with his head in the air on the retreat, and Dubois stepped in with a looping overhand right, which landed bang on the chin and dropped AJ to his hands and knees. AJ was up at the count of 3 and he seemed fairly coherent. He made it to the bell as well, but it looked like the writing was on the wall already in big red letters. For me, the outcome of this fight was always going to hinge on whether or not AJ could hurt Dubois with a big shot early in order to discourage his rushes and slow the fight down to a pace he was comfortable with. Like most people, I suspected that he probably would manage to do that, which is why I picked him, but I repeatedly said in my pre-fight videos, if Joshua is unable to do that, then he'd likely find himself in very serious trouble because he was never going to be able to match Dubois for work rate, stamina, or durability. So it was absolutely crucial that he got Dubois under control early. And he did try to do that, but he failed. And it was Triple D who drew first blood. AJ has always had notoriously poor powers of recovery. When he gets hit, he stays hit. And so from that point, there was an air of inevitability about what would transpire. If AJ couldn't avoid Dubois' big punches in the first round when he was at his freshest and sharpest, what chance would he have now that he was groggy? Dubois launched a vicious assault in the first minute of the second, driving his opponent into the ropes and had him holding on for dear life. Joshua survived the onslaught and attempted to establish himself at long range, but Dubois' jab continuously broke his rhythm. Dubois rocked Anthony Joshua at the start of the third round with a right hand thrown with surprising speed. AJ attempted to pay him back with his own right hand, but again, his timing was completely off. Dubois refused to give AJ the time and space he needed to set up his shots. AJ continued to miss with some uncharacteristically wild haymakers, a sign that desperation was already setting in. Dubois, despite his relative inexperience at championship level, was the far more composed of the two. Towards the end of the third, AJ repeated the mistake he made at the end of the first. After missing a wild right hand, he pulled straight back with his head in the air and was caught this time by a Dubois left hook, which caused him to roll his ankle as he reeled back into the ropes. A short flurry from Dubois sat AJ down for the second time in the fight, right on the bell. Dubois rocked AJ with a hard jab at the start of the fourth, continuing the trend of starting every round fast. As AJ attempted to retreat, he slipped on the shiny advertising on the canvas and was mistakenly given another count by the referee. Dubois pounced on him nonetheless, launching relentless two-fisted attacks. Joshua was in complete survival mode at this point. He did attempt a few uppercuts, but once again, his timing was off. Then, 38 seconds into the fifth round, AJ found his first and only bit of real success in the entire fight, connecting with a clean right hand to Dubois' chin, which forced the younger man to retreat to the corner of the ring. Joshua lunged after him with reckless abandon, desperate not to let this moment slip. But Dubois was calm under pressure. He noticed AJ's hands down and his chin in the air and timed him with a right hand coming in, which stood the older man upright. AJ attempted to fire back, but Dubois beat him to the punch with another right hand, which dropped the man from Watford face down on the canvas for the full count. And that is all she wrote. Daniel Dubois fought pretty much the perfect fight that a man with his particular set of abilities could possibly fight against this opponent. He needed to use his jab and fight at a high pace so as to not allow Joshua to get comfortable and find his timing, and that's exactly what he did. AJ, on the other hand, was technically awful. He kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and some of them were new mistakes that he never used to make, certainly not this often. I said before the fight that this was the first real test of Anthony Joshua and Ben Davison's working relationship, and they failed miserably. Davison has got AJ overcommitting to the right hand, launching himself into that punch. Now, that's okay if the shot lands, because you'll probably knock the opponent out or at least hurt him. But if you miss, the momentum will cause you to fall off balance and be right in the firing line of your opponent's counters. Now, if you find yourself in that position, what you want to do is keep your head low, duck under any counters, then lean forward and grab. What you don't want to do is lean straight back with your chin in the air. But that's exactly what AJ did at the end of the first round and the end of the third. And he was punished for it both times. He never used to make that mistake because he never used to commit to the right hand to that extent to be that off balance in the first place. What he really should have done is thrown some ordinary right hands to start with. Get those landing first. They're not as powerful, but they're a lot safer because if you miss, you won't be off balance. You won't be out of position. Once you've got your timing down on those ordinary right hands, then you can start switching it up and loading up on a few shots. But you do not want to be loading up when you haven't found your timing yet. That's a recipe for disaster. The only way you get away with that is if you've got a really good chin, which AJ most definitely does not. But this is how Ben Davison has got AJ fighting now. Yes, it worked against Francis Ngannou, but Ngannou was not a boxer. That was just a gimmick fight. Dubois was always going to be the first real test of their working relationship. And as I say, they failed miserably. That's not to say that AJ would have won this fight with a different trainer, but he at least wouldn't have made that particular mistake. And of course, the other mistake he made was to go rushing in after he had Dubois buzzed in the fifth. Similar scenario to the first Andy Ruiz fight. Overestimates how hurt his opponent is, then completely forgets about defense. But this time he didn't just get dropped, he got knocked out. If there's anything positive to say about AJ's performance at all, it's that he showed a lot of heart. He didn't quit. He kept getting up and he fought on right to the bitter end. He went out on his shield, no doubt about it. And just as an aside, this fight should put into perspective how good Filip Hrgovic's chin is. I've been saying for the past couple years, Hrgovic has got tremendous punch resistance, as does Jarrell Miller, by the way. Now, as for Daniel Dubois, with this victory, he solidifies himself as a legitimate force on the world stage and completes his unlikely redemption arc. I, for one, did not think he'd be in this position just over a year after quitting in a fight for the second time in his career against Alexander Usyk. But this is why we love boxing, especially heavyweight boxing. It's full of Cinderella stories. The question is this the pinnacle of Dubois' career, or can he go on to even higher heights? Can he go on to gain revenge over Usyk? Personally, I didn't see anything in this performance to convince me that he could beat Usyk at his best, but who's to say Usyk will be at his best if and when he fights Daniel Dubois again? The man's pushing 40. The current crop are surely on their way out. Wilder's finished, Joshua's finished, Fury ain't got many fights left in him. Perhaps Dubois can be the number one among the new crop coming through. Time will reveal. Now, Dubois didn't get hit anywhere near as often in this fight with Joshua as he did against Hrgovic. Does that mean that he's fixed his defense? I'm not so sure. You see, Hrgovic is much tougher than Anthony Joshua, so he was willing to stay in the pocket and trade with Dubois. That's how he was able to land, whereas AJ was reluctant to trade. Whenever Dubois started swinging, AJ either grabbed him or he got on his bike. Dubois didn't have anywhere near as many punches coming at him in this fight as he did against Hrgovic. Go look at the CompuBox. Sometimes offense is the best defense. And in this instance, Dubois' aggression basically shut AJ's offense down. And finally, anyone who still can't see that Matchroom are in decline after this is clinically insane. And when promoters are desperate, that's when they resort to the most cynical behavior. In this instance, Eddie Hearn calling for a Dubois rematch. I mean, there shouldn't have been a two-way rematch clause in the contract in the first place. This wasn't a unification. And secondly, if Eddie Hearn cared one iota about AJ's health and well-being, he'd be doing everything in his power to dissuade him from taking a rematch. It was a one-sided fight. He literally had about 10 seconds of success. For the remainder of the bout, he was taking an absolute shellacking, got beat from pillar to post. You're talking about rematch. Are you nuts? You should be telling him to retire. This fight was even more one-sided than Deontay Wilder against Zhilei Zhang. Oh yes, it was. And I didn't hear Eddie Hearn calling for a rematch after that one. Dear oh dear oh dear. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys made of all this in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out.